Good morning and welcome to the ParkBridge Wealth Management Spring Webinar Series. This program is entitled Children and Money, Timeless Strategies to Transmit to the Next Generation. As always, my name is Jonathan Shenkman, and I'm President and Chief Investment Officer of ParkBridge Wealth Management. In that role, I serve in a fiduciary capacity to help my clients achieve their financial objectives. My practice focuses on working with high net worth families, businesses, and not-for-profits. I manage individual investment portfolios, trust accounts, corporate retirement plans, and endowments to help my clients achieve their financial goals. In addition to the 20 or so events I run every year, I also do a fair amount of writing on the topics of investing and financial planning. And you can read my work in a variety of periodicals, including Barron's, CNBC, Forbes, Kiplinger, The Wall Street Journal, and Trust and Estates Magazine, to name just a few. You can see all my work on my website at parkbridgewealth.com/articles, or by following me on social media at Jonathan on Money. Additionally, you can check out my weekly podcast, which is also called Jonathan on Money, and you can listen to that on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, with that introduction, let's now jump into the program. So the topic of educating children about money can be broken down into many areas. I've decided to focus on three broad sections, which I think are the most practical. The first is teaching our kids the right attitude towards money. The next is about the importance of positioning your children to earn a livable wage. And the final area are timeless planning principles that are helpful for kids to understand early in life and will be as relevant 10, 20, or 30 years from now as they are today. These areas will cover actual financial planning advice, having the proper perspective, and making smart lifestyle decisions with money. All of these items are equally important, and the earlier in life they are understood, the better. Let's first discuss teaching your kids the right attitude towards money. And this starts with having an appreciation for money. A healthy relationship with money should start at a young age. While teaching budgeting, cash flow management, and savings are all important skills, few elementary or high school students have the patience to sit down and discuss any of those topics. It's far wiser to start with simply instilling an appreciation for the things one has: an iPhone, laptop, car, family vacation, a nice meal, a new clothes, or any other luxury that may be in your child's life. Teaching kids to be grateful through casual discussion not only reinforces a positive attitude towards money, but will also serve as a springboard for other financial related conversations. It will also open your child's eyes to families that may not be as fortunate. That awareness and understanding is helpful beyond just the world of personal finance. And as I tell my clients, financial planning is not only about the accumulation of wealth, it is also about the transmission of values to the next generation. A next way to teach a good attitude towards money is imparting the advice of avoiding lifestyle creep. As college graduates enter the workforce and begin to make money, there is a natural desire to spend that money on more things. This temptation to spend more as one's income increases is known as lifestyle creep. It's important to understand that this mindset will not lead to more satisfaction. Instead, it usually will lead to more financial strain as one tries to maintain an increasingly expensive lifestyle. One of the smartest decisions a young professional can make is to continue to live like a student until they bolster their financial reserves and get a handle on their cash flow. For those fresh out of college and accustomed to living with roommates, continuing in a shared living space will not impact their lifestyle, but will allow them to save more money for the next stage of life. The discipline of not continuously inflating your lifestyle as you make more money is learned first and foremost at home. The way you behave in this regard will likely be passed down to your children. Remember, they're watching what you do very carefully. Another concept that is related to the previous point is to never try to keep up with the Joneses. This is also a lesson children learn from watching their parents. Once you settle in a community, certain social pressures begin to build in order to maintain a particular lifestyle. It's important to teach your children that there will always be someone who has more. There will always be a family in your social circle that appears to have a higher income, nicer house, fancier car, goes on better vacations, and on and on. At all levels of wealth, trying to keep up with others is a futile goal that will only lead to unhappiness and financial hardship. It's far more important to live within your means, save money every year, invest it prudently, and focus on the things in life that give you true joy, like spending quality time with family and friends. And lastly, for this section, money is a tool, not a scorecard. My grandfather once told me that he was fortunate enough to never have to worry about money. He said if he needed something, he bought it. If he wanted to go on vacation, he went. If family needed money, he was able to give it to them. Since he was objectively not a rich man, his secret to his success was that he lived within his means and was very satisfied with what he had. Most of my grandfather's happiness was not derived from his money, rather, it was from being able to spend time with his family. Money allowed him to pay his bills and gave him the flexibility to spend time on the things he enjoyed most. If money isn't a concern in your life and you could spend your time as you want, that is the ultimate blessing to share with your children. And I'll conclude this section by saying that parents should model their behavior on what you want your kids to do, because your kids will copy you. And that seems to be a theme I've brought up a number of times already. A client of mine who had been bad at handling his own finances told me that he always tells his kids, do as I say, not as I do. It's important to point out that this does not actually work. You should act the way you want your children to behave. They will ultimately follow your lead. Now let's shift gears a bit to discuss one of the most important aspects of personal finance that is not emphasized enough, which is the importance of earning a livable wage. What teens and kids in their 20s really need to hear as they embark on their life and career is practical advice on how to achieve successful career growth and how to financially support their lifestyle. This is done by building one's human capital. And I know some of you may be thinking, what is human capital and why should I care? Human capital consists of the knowledge and skills that people invest in and accumulate throughout their lives, enabling them to realize their potential and position them for financial success. Life can be difficult at times, and money is certainly not the answer to all of life's problems. However, the ability to earn a decent wage and be valued in the workforce can be immensely beneficial. The beginning of the journey to building your kids' human capital is understanding that college is an investment, not a time to find yourself. Failure to recognize this truth may saddle your kids with an insurmountable level of debt. In truth, college is not necessary for many high school graduates. It's an expensive place to hang out for 4 years while you figure out what you want to do with your life. However, if your kids do decide to go to university, they should make sure to attend an institution that they can afford and earn a degree that will allow them to pay off any debt and maintain a lifestyle that they want. Remember, if you won't be on better financial footing after university, then it may be a financially prudent decision to forego the college experience. And I realize that some attendees may find these comments triggering, but I've seen too many horror stories of college graduates who will struggle the rest of their lives because they were not thoughtful and practical about the decision of going to college in the first place. Next is to encourage your children to find a career that is practical. Pursuing your passion is generally not practical advice. I'm passionate about eating pastries and going on road trips. Unfortunately, neither of those things will help me pay my bills. Your passions are best pursued as hobbies and not as a means of supporting your family. The proper way to choose a career is to first understand the lifestyle you want to live. If you want to live in Los Angeles or Long Island, have 6 children, go away 4 times a year, have a second home in Aspen, then a career as a part-time dog walker may not be practical. I'm not suggesting that every person needs an extravagant lifestyle or that most people should consider a career as an investment banker. I'm just pointing out that your choice of career should be able to support the lifestyle you want. It's amazing to me how many people don't understand that your career directly impacts your lifestyle. Next, it's important that your kids find a career that plays to their natural abilities. Every person brings certain natural abilities to the table. Some people are very analytical, others are great with people, some are great writers, coders, orators, and many more. There are many skills that are valued in the workforce. The key is finding a career that places an emphasis on the skills your kids have to offer. Your kids may be interested in becoming a physician, but if they're bad at school and become woozy around blood, they're starting with a huge handicap relative to the many others who pursue careers in medicine every year. Another way to build human capital is to find a career that you don't hate. This is something that should not be as controversial as it sounds. Your kids don't need to love their job, they just need to not hate it. This doesn't seem glamorous, but being realistic about what they can stomach doing every day for 4 decades that will also make them financially independent is a sensible strategy. And the next piece of advice on building one's human capital is just to stick with it. It's important to impart the advice of avoiding jumping around frequently to other opportunities. After the first few years of one's career, it's important to settle on an industry and plan to stick with it over the long term. Constantly moving around is a big red flag professionally and may ruin one's career momentum. The decision to stick with a field will make someone an invaluable resource to colleagues, clients, and allow them to develop a reputation of being skilled in a particular area. Every career has its pros and cons that are not always apparent to the outside observer. There are always speed bumps along the way to success, but they're usually temporary. The ability to persevere through them will usually position an individual for more opportunities, responsibilities, and higher earnings in the future. This perseverance teaches kids grit that will be helpful throughout their lives. And finally, the last point for this section is to play the long game. It's important to emphasize to never make a short-term business decision at the expense of long-term success. This advice may come in many forms, whether it's trying to reach a near-term goal, sales quota, or really anything else. Success is developed and more money is made by playing the long game, developing long-lasting relationships, establishing trust, and creating a stellar reputation. This takes decades to build, but will pay enormous dividends in any line of work. Honesty, trustworthiness, and doing what's best for your clients should be valued above all else and allow folks to have a career that they're proud of. The short-term accolades are just distractions and should be treated as such. And I'll end this section with a thought that every child needs to hear regarding their career, which is this: the race is long, and in the end, it is only against yourself. Spending the time and money today to invest in your decisions, relevant education and training, and values in order for your human capital to grow when you're young will set the financial trajectory for the rest of your life. And now that we know how to impart the right attitude towards money and to teach our kids to be financially independent, let's discuss timeless personal finance strategies. And I've structured this section to be rapid fire financial planning advice. Each point can be its own webinar unto itself, but I've decided to just touch on each of these timeless principles. And the sooner your kids appreciate these enduring concepts, the better off they'll be. Let's first discuss financial planning basics. First, cash is king. The foundation of any prudent financial plan is to have at least 3 to 6 months worth of expense money sitting in cash. Adequate cash reserves should allow your kids to sail through challenging times like job loss or experiencing a significant decrease in income relatively unscathed. And the next one is debt is bad. This point should be hammered home to your kids every single day from when they're in diapers until they're out of the house. Many advisors will point out that borrowing money has both positives and negatives. And they're right. In the right set of circumstances, leverage may be quite helpful. However, the people who are in the best shape financially are generally folks who are not indebted to anybody. Most people should strive to eliminate all their debt. On that point, make sure your kids understand how credit cards work. Credit cards exist to ease transactional burdens and allow people to shop without carrying wads of cash. The added benefit is to build your credit score. Building your credit score is as simple as paying off your full credit card balance on time every month. Many folks believe it's only necessary to pay the minimum balance every month. This is always the wrong approach. Think about a credit card debt as rapidly growing cancer to your financial health that can quickly derail your finances. And the next one is to pay yourself first. Before helping family, friends, or spending on discretionary items, it's important to understand the need to set aside money for your own future. If you're not taking care of yourself, you may need to depend on the generosity of others, and that is a very precarious situation to be. And on this point, you should advise your kids to enroll in their employer's retirement plan when they first start working. As a 22-year-old first entering the workforce, your child's 40-plus year time horizon is their biggest asset. In order to capitalize on this asset, it's essential to enroll in one's 401k and contribute the maximum amount if possible. Once the money is automatically contributed, they probably won't miss it. They will likely just learn to live on less. Over time, the power of compound interest will work its magic and increase your child's nest egg exponentially. And the last item for this section is to get your big spending decisions correct. Student loans, purchasing a home, buying or leasing an automobile, taking out credit card debt are all big financial decisions. Buying an occasional latte or splurging an extra $2 for guacamole on your sandwich are not big decisions. If you help your kids get their big spending decisions correct, they will likely not overextend themselves. The little things the many financial gurus harp on are far less impactful. Next area is related to housing. First, a home will achieve poor returns relative to stocks, but it is still a good investment for most families. So, my thoughts on home ownership have evolved over time. Much data supports the fact that one's house is a low returning investment after factoring in all associated expenses. In fact, it will likely barely outpace inflation. However, a home is a form of forced savings. Few homeowners will risk losing their house by becoming delinquent of their mortgage. If your kids commit to living in a home for several decades and the value appreciates a little bit every year, they will likely be left with a significant asset to sell, which will help fund their retirement. For most people, the annualized returns relative to the market are irrelevant, and the ability to build equity in your home will be very helpful over time. And by the way, listeners should not equate building equity in a home to building cash value in a life insurance policy. And part on your kids that for most people, permanent life insurance is a ripoff and a huge financial mistake that may be hard for some people to hear, but it's the truth. Next is renting is still a wonderful option. There are many cute phrases that dismiss renting as a form of housing. These include renting is throwing away money, or why would you pay your landlord's mortgage instead of your own? These phrases are easy to remember and are meant to underscore the merits of buying over renting. In reality, renting is actually a sensible solution for many. It allows folks, especially those on a tight budget, to outsource the financial burden and headaches of home ownership to a landlord. It also gives them the optionality to move at any time. Especially in this crazy housing market where prices and rates are both high, renting is a prudent, practical, and sensible financial option for many. Now let's discuss behavioral finance. One's emotions and behavior are one of the biggest risks to an investor's portfolio. Investors tend to make drastic decisions when they're feeling scared, greedy, or impatient. These impulsive moves won't work out. When it comes to emotions, the best approach is to keep them in check. This can be done by automating as much of your investment process as possible. And I believe Warren Buffett said, once you have ordinary intelligence, what you need is the temperament to control the urges that get other people into trouble investing. And the next is mixing politics and your portfolio is a recipe for disaster. We're in an election cycle, and it's good to remind people that people that are normal and normally civilized can become insane when discussing politics. Even the utterance of a particular candidate's name is enough to enrage folks who are politically charged. Every election year, I personally see friends and acquaintances make rash decisions based on the outcome of presidential elections. Impart on your kids that politics has no place in their portfolio. The markets don't care who's in the Oval Office. Failure to embrace this reality will cost them a lot of money. Next area is the concept of ignoring the noise. First, ignore market pundits. There are massive businesses dedicated to selling fear, greed, and quote unquote predicting short term moves in the market. These are called financial news networks. No market prognosticator, no matter how smart they are, should cause you or your kids to overhaul their investment strategy. Remember, things are never as bad as the talking heads on TV or on social media are claiming. Furthermore, whenever you hear a prediction, keep in mind the wise words of Yogi Berra, who said, it is difficult to make predictions, especially about the future. Next, don't take investment advice from friends. Some of the worst financial mistakes people make are based on advice from friends. It's far better to hire and pay an experienced investment professional who can help you navigate the investment landscape, avoid social pressures, and minimize the many pitfalls that others make. Okay, here is some big picture investment advice. Simplicity trumps complexity. There is a tendency for investors to make their lives more complicated. This includes having funds scattered at various institutions in search of the best opportunities, having way too many funds or ETFs within their portfolio or stocks. A better approach is to keep your investments streamlined. Keeping your money consolidated in only a few financial institutions and a few investments will allow you to be organized and avoid major mistakes. And as Leonardo da Vinci once said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And the next is that process is more important than product. It is highly unlikely that any single product will change the trajectory of your kid's financial life. Instead, it's far more productive to focus on their process for building wealth. This process includes spending less than you make, investing those savings in stocks and bonds, and sticking with this strategy over the long term. Another big picture item is a high savings rate is far more important than trying to achieve high returns. Future returns are impossible to predict. Investors can exert far more control over their financial lives by how they choose to allocate their cash flow. Deciding to maintain a high savings rate is one of the best tools any investor can make to secure their financial future. More savings means more funds for short-term expenses, more money invested for the future, and more cash on hand in case of an unexpected expense. Next one is that lifestyle decisions are more important than investment returns. And I alluded to this one earlier. Many of the best financial decisions are actually lifestyle decisions. Who you decide to marry, the career you choose, and where you decide to live are all far more impactful to your nest egg than having outsized returns. And finally, appreciation of trade-offs. This is a great lesson for kids to learn early since it's applicable in more areas than just money. We face constraints and have a finite amount of time and resources, so by choosing one thing, we necessarily are diminishing or eliminating something else. With a finite income stream, all spending decisions are trade-offs between expenses, savings, and investments. An individual could decide to lease a luxury vehicle, but a portion of that monthly car payment could have been saved in a retirement account and invested towards his financial future had he leased a less expensive car. We all need to make trade-offs, and determining one's priorities in life can help guide what we want to spend money on and what expenses we can minimize. This concept is one of the cornerstones of financial planning. Let's now discuss investment strategy. First one is your kids will fail at day trading. Many people have a day trading phase in their life. However, the sooner your kids come to the realization that day trading is gambling and they will lose money doing it, the better off they'll be. Boring over exciting. Investors often confuse an exciting idea with a good investment opportunity. Excitement may be generated from the latest fad or of an exclusive strategy that promises to trounce the performance of the S&P 500. These opportunities are being sold on hype and not on their fundamentals. If you want your kids to avoid being lured into one of these situations, then encourage them to pursue an approach of sticking with plain, vanilla, boring investments. And the next one is your time horizon is the cornerstone of investing. Time horizon dictates how much risk can prudently be taken within your portfolio. It also the main determinant of developing an appropriate asset allocation. Investing without having a clear understanding of when you need to use the money is imprudent. On this point, I have seen many young people hiding cash or bonds today. This strategy offers a false sense of security. People that do this will have a much harder time achieving their goals. If your kids have money and they won't need for decades in the future, they should maintain a heavy stock allocation or they will be missing out on many years of higher returns in the market. The next one is to automate your savings. Dollar cost averaging is the process of routinely adding money to investments at regular intervals. Every human is emotionally charged, but as I mentioned earlier, emotional decisions have no place in the world of successful investing. The sooner your kids automate their investing by adding money to their portfolio at regular intervals, the more seamless it will be for them to build wealth over time by eliminating their emotions from their wealth building process. Diversification is the only free lunch with investing. There is a tendency for investors to find and pile into the hot investment du jour. This is great while things are going well, but all companies, sectors, industries, countries go through cycles. When things go south, having an overly concentrated position in any one area of the market can be devastating. The best way to protect your portfolio from risk of over-concentration in one area of the market is to have a policy of diversifying across many asset classes. And finally, for this section, you will not get rich quickly and the power of compound interest. It's common for kids to want to get rich quickly. We've all heard stories of some child actors or technology prodigies who have made a lot of money at a very early age. These stories are few and far between because they are not the norm. For most people, financial success takes decades of hard work, saving, and investing. It's a grind and not glamorous. However, due to the power of compound interest or the interest earned on interest, anybody can build a sizable nest egg. It just takes investing small amounts of money over a multi-decade time horizon, and you could seamlessly build a seven-figure nest egg. This is true even for folks who are not highly compensated. Next is an often overlooked topic that kids need to understand, which is risk. High returns mean taking a high level of risk. Investors tend to search for the silver bullet of high returns with no risk. This panacea does not exist. In order to achieve high expected returns, you need to take a higher level of risk. The nature of risk may come in many forms, including leverage, volatility, illiquidity, or poor credit. Go into every investment with eyes wide open. The sooner in life your kids appreciate this reality, the better position they'll be to avoid common investment mistakes that most people make. And the next one is, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. There's no shortage of charlatans in the investment community trying to take your money. They usually do this with superior sales skills and promises they will not be able to keep. If something seems too good to be true, then trust your gut and avoid it. Appreciation at this point will serve as a helpful guide over the course of your children's investment career. And the next one is, if your kids don't take risks, they won't grow. This is true regarding investing, business, and life in general. Investors need to gain exposure to assets with risk like stocks to outpace inflation. If you want to make more money and become a thought leader in your field, you need to take career risk as well. Taking calculated risks makes life much richer. And then bad things happen. Plan for this inevitability. No one is immune to hard times, unexpected death, disability, automobile accidents, theft, fires, and long-term care needs. Get the proper risk management in place, usually through insurance, to protect your family for when these circumstances arise in your life. Also, make sure you have an estate plan in place. This type of planning will help your family through a tough situation by making it much more manageable. And finally, for this section, there are no guarantees. No investment or financial products is a sure thing. Even insurance solutions, which claim to offer guarantees, are only as good as the financial stability of the insurance company and its financial assumptions. When it comes to money, it's far better to think in terms of probability. If you focus on how likely something is to work out, you can balance your various investments and help manage risk more accurately. Next is the dangers of pursuing perfection, and this section is really dedicated for those kids who are straight A students. There is no perfect time to invest. Some investors are hesitant to implement a strategy due to finding an optimal time to invest in the market. It is human nature to want the best deal and to be perfect. However, waiting for a stock to trade at some arbitrary price often leaves the investor waiting indefinitely. If you have a prudent strategy, then hoping for the market to trade at certain levels is ill-advised. Moving forward immediately with your strategy is generally the right decision. And when in doubt, keep in mind that the optimal time to invest is today. Then the next one is, there is no perfect portfolio. There is an infinite amount of literature on portfolio construction. Two investors with the same risk profile, goals, and time horizon may have different portfolios suggested to them by various investment firms. All those portfolios may be reasonable. In fact, the more one reads, learns, and researches, the more one concludes that there is no one correct way to invest. As long as you embrace timeless investing principles like the items I'm discussing here today, you should be fine. Now, here's what your kids need to know about taxes. If they make money, they will need to pay taxes. There are many legal ways to minimize one's tax bills. These include contributing to retirement accounts, using tax-efficient investments, using losses to offset gains, and others. Despite many creative strategies to lower one's tax bill, you will never be able to avoid them completely. There's no way around the fact that if you make money, you will also need to pay Uncle Sam his share. Don't lose sleep over this. It's a fact of life. As I always tell my clients, don't let the tax tail wag the investment dog. Now it's time to be a bit profound with some money perspective to share with your children. First, money will not make you happy. I work with many very wealthy families. One thing I've learned over the years is what was famously said by the notorious B.I.G. Mo money, mo problems. If you were unhappy before you had money, then accumulating more wealth will not make you a happier or more content person. In fact, it will likely lead to a whole new set of issues. Money can only paper over what's broken inside. It can't fix it. Next, remind your kids that retirement is an outdated concept. The concept of no longer working by your mid-60s is archaic, so don't rush to retire early like so many youth are doing today. Few people have enough hobbies to keep them engaged every day, all day, for a few decades in retirement. This lack of structure, social engagement, and intellectual stimulation leads people to mentally and physically deteriorate or obsess and worry about silly things. The truth is, work is healthy. If you don't need to work for the money, it's worth finding some type of work to keep you mentally and physically healthy. And finally, for this section, live your bucket list today. People shouldn't wait until retirement to check things off their bucket list. No one knows when they'll die or become too sick to do certain activities. Don't save activities for retirement. Rather, do things while you can. Additionally, if you do have some items you like to tackle in retirement, put a date on when you want to accomplish these activities. Goals with no timeline are easier to procrastinate on. And finally, health and wealth are linked. Work out and eat well. This may not seem like a personal finance lesson, but it is. Similar to saving and investing for your financial future, you should advise your kids to eat well and work out for their physical future. Granted, there are many diseases that don't discriminate between healthy and unhealthy people. However, there are plenty of self-imposed illnesses that directly correspond to your choices around food and exercise. Poor health decisions can compound and lead to a very expensive health costs down the road. Plus, they may rob you of the ability to enjoy your middle age and golden years most effectively. And I see this working with some 40-year-olds who labor to walk up a few stairs, while I also see 80-year-olds who look great and feel great. Drinking beer and eating pizza at 3 a.m. may work in college or when you first start working, but that lifestyle can take a toll on your body very quickly. It's best to get over that phase by your mid-20s. And I'll conclude with some final thoughts. First, money doesn't come with an instruction manual. If it did, there would be far fewer stories of families with generational levels of wealth who squander it all within a few decades. So do the best to educate your children on this topic. Second, money should empower your kids to create, build, and pursue their own goals. Achieving that result requires that children receive a solid fiscal education. Parents can teach their children starting from a young age through demonstration and being cognizant of how they speak and act with their own finances in front of their children. Kids are very perceptive. Observing the way money conversations are handled at home will serve as the foundation for how they handle money in the future. Third, as children enter adulthood, which I consider to be after they've been in the workforce for several years, the focus on money should shift, and they should be actively included in discussions related to finances, investments, and philanthropy. And finally, imparting the values, knowledge, and expectations of how your children should handle their inheritance is essential in cementing your own legacy. Over time, your kids will form their own opinions and thoughts about how to handle their wealth responsibly. But you can help influence the relationship with money in a positive way by discussing all the points I mentioned today. And with that, this concludes today's program. Should you have any follow-up questions, you can reach me at jonathan@parkbridgewealth.com. Email is generally the best way to get a hold of me. Feel free to reach out if I could be a resource in any way. 3 more quick items before I let you go. First, this concludes my spring webinar series. However, I have many exciting webinars lined up for the fall, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, if you have a friend or colleague who would like to be notified of my upcoming webinars, they can email me with the word webinar in the subject line, and I'll add them to my webinar distribution list. Second, you could follow all my work on X or on Instagram at Jonathan on Money. You could also listen to me on my weekly podcast called Jonathan on Money, which is available on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can watch my daily financial planning videos by following me on YouTube at Jonathan on Money or on LinkedIn as well. Third, please take 30 seconds to fill out my survey at the end of this program. It helps me improve my webinars and provide timely and interesting content to attendees, and I thank you in advance for that. And with that, this concludes today's session. Please stay safe and healthy and have a wonderful day, everybody.